now, good morning, PASW staff, clients, and friends joining us for a beautiful Tuesday morning. Thank you for tuning in. We looked at your film scoring assignment for the Robert Zemeckis film Back to the Future. So get that into me by today. We'll see the results for Friday. It's going to be a blast. Technically, it should be fun. Today we're going to talk about, sometimes you hear people say, Hollywood's fake and it's a phony town. We're going to look at one of those fakes, and we're going to look at one of those truths. You hear that kind of generalization, and it's true, but we're going to look at a fake and how Hollywood, kind of tried to keep a singer that nobody knows the name of. I mean, very few people do. And I'll give a shout out to Sebastian, my brother, and my dad, because they would talk about this. They knew her name before I did, and then I got a book recently, and this person was mentioned, and I said, okay, we got to do a class on her because we've heard this woman's voice, but it's been kept a secret for the most part from Hollywood because I don't know why, because Hollywood's really can be a brutal place for some people, and or an unjust place, particularly in the golden age of Hollywood, which we'll be talking about. So we're going to be talking about a very famous soprano ghost singer, and we're going to be looking at some scenes, and you're probably going to be like, I've seen those scenes, but I had no idea they were sung by somebody else. So we're going to look at the sung hero, Marni Nixon.
On a bright cloud of music shall we fly? Shall we dance? Shall we then say goodnight and mean goodbye? Or perchance...
So Marni Nixon, yes, that's her name. Lived till about 86 years old, so died a few years ago, and she was the go-to singer. She was classically trained. She played violin at a very young age. She had perfect pitch. She studied classical opera. She performed at 17 years old in Carmina Burana at the Hollywood Bowl. So she was a prodigy in music, sight reading, everything, classically trained, born in Altadena to a musical family, and got into show in 1930, and then got into show business doing bit parts, and eventually they started taking note of her extreme musical talents, particularly with her voice, and how she was able to not only just sing it better, but really get to know the actor she was going to be dubbing. Now, this was a big secret. So we're going to be looking at 3 movies in particular, and just some of my favorite songs from those musicals. And everything we'll be hearing is Marni Nixon's voice dubbed. And these musicals are probably the most famous musicals ever written. So we're going to be looking at The King and I, which she sang all of the songs, and it wasn't Deborah Carr. It was, in fact, Marni Nixon. We're going to be looking at My Fair Lady, which Audrey Hepburn didn't sing any of that. It was Marni Nixon. We're going to be looking at West Side Story, where Natalie Wood didn't sing any of that. It was all Marni Nixon. So we're going to be looking at a little bit of the fake side of Hollywood. And there's some anecdotes and trivia things that I think are going to be fun. One of our earlier films was in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. That film, Marilyn Monroe sings that very iconic song, Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. Some of that is Monroe's voice, but then Marni Nixon came in to embellish it, particularly with her high note.
I've heard of affairs that are strictly platonic, but diamonds are a girl's best friend. And I think affairs that you must keep Masonic are better bets. If little pets get big baguettes, time rolls on, and youth is gone, and you can't straighten up when you bend. But stiff back or stiff knees, you stand straight and stiff knees.
1956, she worked closely with Deborah Kerr, and The King and I is one of the most famous musicals by Rodgers and Hammerstein. We didn't look at it, but it's up there with one of the best musicals. Now, she worked closely with Kerr because Kerr knew that her voice was going to be dubbed by Marni, and Marni Nixon would say in interviews that she studied Deborah Kerr's movement, and it wasn't just about okay, you do your thing and I'll do my thing in the studio later. She was really active on set with her movements and trying to, because this is also acting as well, obviously. This isn't just singing it. This is also looking at the character you're going to be singing. And Kerr was very cool about this whole thing, which shows you the ego that wasn't there, that this was, and in fact, they told Marni Nixon, if word gets out that you're singing on any of this in The King and I, you'll never work in this business again. And she had to sign a contract, and they were very serious about keeping this a secret. In fact, it wasn't until Kerr shortly wrote a piece saying, actually, that wasn't my singing voice at all. It was Marni Nixon's voice, and she completely gave her credit. Even though The King and I sold, hundreds of thousands of albums, Marni Nixon got $420 for that gig.
Getting to know you, getting to know all about you, getting to like you, getting to hope you like me, getting to know you, putting it my way, but nicely. You are precisely my cup of tea. Getting to know you, getting to feel free and easy. When I am with you, getting to know what to say. Haven't you noticed, suddenly I'm bright and breezy because of all the beautiful and new things I'm learning about you day by day.
So in 1961, West Side Story comes out. We looked at Bernstein's West Side Story. Brilliant, opera/musical. This one was different than Deborah Kerr's experience because although Natalie Wood was told that she was going to be singing all the songs, and she had a vocal coach, and I think she knew that Marni Nixon was there, but the deal was that she would only be there to fill in for the high notes. Marni Nixon knew that this was probably going to be an impossible electronic engineering effect, and so she probably gathered early that they were going to be dubbing her. Now, after each take, everybody said to Natalie Wood, the directors, beautiful, you did great, you're going to be terrific in this movie. And she said literally they would wink over at Marni Nixon, implying that you're going to replace all of this. Kind of not the best move, but again, this is how Hollywood works. I think Natalie Wood was really crushed and embarrassed when she found out that all of her singing was dubbed. And Marni Nixon said Natalie Wood's voice was okay, it was okay for pop songs. But with Bernstein, as we looked at, he incorporated classical and jazz and musical theater, and his music's very sophisticated. And the same with Richard Rodgers, too. They're good songs, but they're not pop songs in the sense, not always pop songs in the sense that anybody can sing them. Some of these are very hard songs, which require a huge range and timbre in the sound of what's coming through, that sometimes you do need somebody classically trained, and Marni Nixon was that somebody. So I think it was awkward for Natalie Wood, and she was upset and embarrassed. I guess I can see rightly so, but then in the end, the only soundtrack I listened to from West Side Story, and it contractually gave her a 0.25% of his personal royalties, which sounds small, but wasn't really that small. It was really kind of cool that she received royalties from the soundtrack album. and spoke out for the rights of goat singers. She said that she was fine doing this up until after West Side Story, because it was kind of like, okay, maybe I should get some credit for singing all of these songs in pretty much an opera, West Side Story, which it is. Maybe I deserve a little credit for this. And I think that's, up until then, she was cool. But then it was like, maybe give me credit and a little bit more than $240. So she didn't get her first on-screen appearance until The Sound of Music in 1965. She's Sister Sophia, and you can see her briefly on screen in this scene.
She waltzes on her way to mass and whistles on the stairs.
But then My Fair Lady, a year before, 1964, all of Audrey Hepburn's the Eliza Doolittle character was sung by Marni Nixon, and nowhere in the credits does that fact say that Marni Nixon sang it. In the soundtrack credits, in the movie credits, Marni Nixon's name was nowhere to be found. It's so unfair when you think about it, isn't it?
I could have danced all night, I could have danced all night, and still have begged for more. I could have spread my wings and done 1,000 things I've never done before. I'll never know what made it so exciting. Why all at once my heart took flight. I only know when he began to dance with me, I could have danced all night.
She taught at Cal State LA. She went a lot into education, and but I mean, it sounded like she got some recognition later, and people are slowly realizing I think, how much talent she did give to Broadway. And those musicals that she were in were probably some of the biggest in the world ever. And I don't know how Audrey Hepburn felt about that. I don't know if she even cared. I mean, I know there's musicals today where people's voices are used, but I just thought Marni Nixon deserves a class. We should know about this singer's great voice, and how she could change her, and it's one thing having a good voice, but she had a good voice and also a great actress, because she would act out the voice too, and she would change the timbre of her voice to fit, because she actually helped with some of the that scene in Tonight. She actually would dub some of Rita Moreno's singing in that section, just in the section of the Tonight Quintet, and so it's like, now I got to sound like a Puerto Rican singing. So, I mean, she was just so versatile and so brilliant. So that's Marni Nixon, a little Hollywood trivia that I think now it's okay to talk about. But back then, it was very scandalous to let that secret out. Okay, hope you enjoyed this. The great Marni Nixon, what a massive talent. See you tomorrow for Wednesday's class. Love you, miss you, and I've said it all. Bye.